What's up everyone, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be talking about Romancing Saga 2022 Saga Arsenal banner. We have Arsenal and Haniwa, characters from Game Boy Saga, and Barthelemy and Melissa, the mother and father of both Liz and Polka. This is the human version of Barthelemy, where he was only a happier user and not a mage. Melissa is a support unit, Arsenal is a tank damage dealer, and Haniwa is a tank counter specialist, while Barthelemy is a damage dealer with a focus on pierce and heat. We'll start talking about Arsenal first. He's a very defensive and strong character. Arsenal has insane endurance with 110%, insane dexterity with 115%. The bonuses goes for dexterity and agility, another status that he wants to focus. 90% agility is not bad, especially since he gets bonus. His will does not suffer too much, he's actually 60% on okay levels. So you're gonna use him to do blunt damage where content counterattacks you usually with physical attacks and not magical. His endurance needs to be used, it's pretty high. Well, we also have his S style that you get from the event, move more into that later. As a first, the passive called Deck Toxinator gives him a cleanse on the end of a turn and also plus 1 BP, so he actually gets 4 BP a turn. It's very nice and helps him with some cycles. Then we have Strengthened Energy, giving him 10% increase in damage at all times, plus 2 BP on start of battle. So he starts with 12, gets 4 BP a turn, very good. Then fired up 6 gets him 30% increase in damage, so you get a total of 40% all the time, 4 BP cycles, and 12 BP on start. For skills, the first one is called Mega Smasher. This is a 6 BP attack with delay that deals S power damage. It's actually pretty high for 6 BP. We can even compare this to the likes of, well, Saruin. Remember Saruin, a character that has 5 BP attack with S power? Well, S power 39. Look back into Arsenal, S power 40. Gun damage calculations are much higher than normal great swords or mages, so his dexterity is just so high, meaning that the damage will be similar. And the good thing is that he gets 1 BP, so in the end it's just like this skill was 5 like Saruin, for example, but it has delay. This is the price. It has delay because he wants to use this to delay some attacks. More into that later. Then the second attack is called Smasher. This one is an A power blunt and sun AoE attack with 10 BP. It's actually pretty nice when you consider that it's 10 BP and he can use on turn 1. And then he can use this again on turn 3, just like another character that we got recently, Matriarch number 3. Matriarch number 3 has the same setup, but she actually has a fast attack with Twin Penetrate, and she can use on turn 1 and then on turn 3. Well, Arsenal is going to do much more damage, but he does not have the fast property, meaning that you need to use a formation that increases his turn order so that he uses this attack. It's a very good combination. Right now we are just farming story more than other events because of the weapon drops, and then you can use him for story farming. Then the last attack is called Force Blaster. This is only blunt this time. It hits 4 times all times, and every time that he hits, he recovers his HP by around 150. The power is not too high, only D10 modifier, but that's not a problem. We'll actually be comparing this to another character that's not even blunt damage, and that is Mikhail. Mikhail has a global X style. This one here with attack called Quadruple Pierce. This case is only 9, but this has delay. Usually when an attack has delay, it has higher power. And it hits 4 times with E power and also recovers. So this skill is just too similar, but instead of blunt, it's pierce. Mikhail will also heal with his passive, so that means that he actually heals 5 times, helping out placing him on the front line. But when we compare, his dexterity is only 99, and Arsenal again uses guns, is gonna do much more damage. As a turn 1 nuker for content, he's gonna do a lot. And then after Force Blaster is used, he can attack with normal attack for 2 turns and then use Force Blaster again. It's a very powerful cycle of single target damage. When you have more than one boss, that's not gonna be so good. You would prefer to use maybe Smasher. that he can use, like I said, on turn 1 and on turn 3, and then after that he would change between 2 or 3 turn cycles. But when farming, this is gonna be super powerful. He's also a very good companion to Leon if you are needing another damage dealer because of the cleanse part and also the option between AoE and single target. Well, I also said that his Mega Smasher can help with cycle. It helps if you increase Force Blaster to 15, and then you're gonna use Smasher. You leave Mega Smasher on 8, so that helps him just cycle between his 2 powerful AoE attacks on turn 1 and on turn 3. That's how he was designed. Well, now we can talk about his inheritance. We have Sharp Shot. This is a very cheap attack, only 1 BP for C power and 15 mod. It's pretty strong for the coast, but you hardly ever want to inherit this because you want to save BP for his other strong attacks. The second one is called Heli Nullifier, and for 8 BP he will just remove all enemies' buffs. That is amazing. It's buff break to AoE. We have many buff breakers. We have the Global X from Barthelemy alongside Global X Barbara. There's also amplifiers available for Rock Bouquet, Rouge, Rick, Mystic Acelus, but they are only single target. I don't know when we're gonna need an AoE version of buff break, but if you do, you have access here, but it has less usage, does not do damage. All of them can do buff break with 9 or 10 BP with a very powerful attack, while he just stops and wants to use Heavy Nullifier every 2 turns and will act as a support unit. I don't know, like I said, how many times you're gonna need this. Then the third skill, Start Catastrophe. This one is a 16 BP attack with Blunt and Sun. And it's actually an interesting thing to inherit if you want to attack on turn 2, but it comes with some problems. First of all, we have Blunt and Sun damage as power in 44 mod. We can compare this to Fuse. Well, Fuse has a air support attack that he can use on turn 2 and has S power as well, and Blunt. Well, the case here with Arsenal is that Arsenal has a very high dexterity. The power is already 44. It's just 1 mod behind Double S, and it's gonna do more damage, but it doesn't have the fast property that Fuse has. It does not bring morale up. It's harder to use. It will do more damage. You can even use them together, but have restricted usage. But let's say that you are on a story stage farming with Albert, and Albert instant kill the first and the third wave. You can place Arsenal and help do damage, but you have to be careful with the formation that you're gonna use for that. So, very powerful attack, just hard to use. And that's about Arsenal. A very powerful unit with high endurance, dexterity, and agility. Can be used for farming, can be used for bossing, carries a unique skill that can buff break all targets, but besides that is mostly used for damage. Can be a very good companion to Leon if you need extra damage, but if you are okay with Leon for boss fights, well, you know that Leon does not need more help. He can just finish bosses just fine. Unless the boss has a mechanic that will just try to kill you very fast, like, well, ScherBR, you don't need any extra help for damage, just for support and sustain. But still a very powerful unit, just easy to skip based on design. It's gonna receive a very high double S grade in the tier list because of damage and potential, but still an easy skip, sadly. The next character is Haniwa. We only have an S style of Haniwa so far, so no need for comparison. He has a focus on STR and agility. That's fine because martial artist needs those 2 status to do damage and increase accuracy. His endurance is high, 87% is not bad. He needed even more than that because he needs to receive damage to counterattack, since he's a counter specialist. He does have close will on 82%, his intelligence is not needed. So I don't like much his status distribution, could be much better. Well, for first passive we have 7 Swords counter. When he's directly attacked, he will reduce the damage but still receives and counterattacks with 7 Sword. The chance is medium, only 25% of the time he's gonna counter. 7 Sword is an attack that hits between 4 to 7 times with deep power and its slash. It will only be used by rank 1, that means that it does not have increased power. And let me tell you, 25% chance to trigger, and sometimes you get 4 hits only. It does not justify using Haniwa. Like I was saying in my preview, Haniwa competes with a very recent character that we have, that's Boston. This version of Boston here is just too tanky. He has higher endurance, he has similar STR and agility, but when he counters, he just uses a much better attack. With pincer time, he goes and does slash, blunt, pincer, frenzy. 3 attacks, always 3 attacks to debuff the target STR. This is handful in many situations, and that's why it's hard to justify Haniwa when we have Boston. Boston also increases the endurance every time that he attacks, even on counter, so he receives less and less damage till it reaches 0. Haniwa don't have that. What he has is attribute boost 1. On the start of a turn, he will get 5% boost to all of his status. So, well, in 4 turns, you still don't get 20% because of decay, but at least he can keep buffing himself. Then we have high counter tension, giving him 20% increase in damage at all times, and 30% further when landing a counter attack, for a max of 40% increase when he is countering with 7 swords. Yeah, I really don't like Haniwa because the way that he's designed it doesn't justify too much. He would need more stuff to just increase the damage, because it's a low risk and low payoff configuration. For our skills, we have Bash. This is a 3BP attack that hits single foe, B power, 22 mod, and has a chance to stun. This is useful in the, well, Kazinsi, because you have to stun, but there's just so many stunners in martial arts attackers that don't justify as well. And then we have Temblor. Temblor is an AoE attack with C power 19 mod. That's actually not as bad. There are many 6BP attacks with 16 mod. This one has a higher, but there's a reason for this. His passives are low, and his status are not exactly made for farming or for real damage. So at least he can use this 2 times in a row. That means that if there's an event with 2 waves, he can use it there. Just not so powerful as other options. Then the third attack is Conflagration. Conflagration is a 10BP AoE attack with heat damage instead of blunt, and a power 35 mod is pretty high. Pretty high. We can even compare this to the likes of Urpina, a character that we use it so much in the game, and she has 32 and uses 12 BP. So, well, when you say the power is good, it's good, just in a wrong character. Conflagration will now also be able to be amplified in Apollo and in Goddess, and they are much better using Conflagration than Haniwa. Well, Haniwa can inherit stuff from his S style. There is Mini Conflagration, a 3BP AoE heat attack that can be used constantly after he opens with the normal Conflagration. So at least he has an infinite cycle of heat AoE damage and can be placed on the agility position for Rainbow Rangers, for example. So there is something unique on this. Now he also has Mending. This is a 5EP 1LP skill that recovers HP and recovers by a large amount, and then he gives guard up to himself. That is for when you open this fight and you try to counter with 7 sword counter, you don't get to trigger it. It takes a lot of damage, and then you have to heal to try again. That's why this was made, so that you can keep trying. Then the last attack from Inheritance is 7 Sword itself. Well, you can use this, but it just cannot be used on turn 2 because it's 14. And it hits between 4 to 7 times. It's just not worth the effort. We just talked about Arsenal, a character that can do it every 3 turns. Heals when attacks, is much more reliable, but yeah, he does blunt damage, but has much better offensive status. Sadly, this Haniwa here is not that good. I will say that he deserves an S grade only. Now, so just for future prospect, there is a free version of Haniwa in the future that's pretty, let's say, unique. He has some interesting attack called Haniwa Crash, that is double S power with 6 BP only, but he loses his HP when he uses, and it's a roll attack, so he can use it in the roll meta in the future, or he can also open with a very powerful AoE attack if you want. But this one is free, you can get from the event, and well, besides farming, it's not a good thing at all. So there is at least this future usage for himself. Time to talk about Barthelemy. We have 5 different styles of Barthelemy in the game so far. The A style comes from Story, it's his young version. Then we have the first limited, A Twisted Heart Yet. This one has Abaddon Hands, was the start of the fast meta. Then we got the second, Let's Have a Blast. This one has Scatter Explosions, very powerful. To inherit into the third one, To Reclaim Myself, that it's a very strong damage dealer for long fights, but needs inheritance. But now we have the fourth one, Your Healthy Growth. This one is not a mage like the past limited versions. He's just like his A style, focused on pierce and heat. And this is an interesting way to keep your roster smaller, since you can just farm status with Barthelemy and use him for different content, physical and magical. It's kind of hard to compare the status between them since they have different focus, but I'll compare to the last one. We have similar endurance, STR does not matter, the dexterity from the current one is much higher since he's actually using a happier for pierce damage. The agility is very much similar. We got a buff to his intelligence to 105% for a character that's not really a mage. It's pretty high, so he can inherit stuff now, and JP was only 80 something. Now his will is a little lower, but he gets much higher love and lower charisma. Well, we have 2 arrows for dexterity. It makes total sense that he's trying to focus on this. He gets increased to will as well. So usually, like I always say, when an enemy is weak to pierce, it usually attacks with magical attacks, so it makes sense here as well. His agility is pretty high because he's also useful in farming. So a focus on dexterity, agility, and intelligence, but only arrows for dexterity. Well, if you want to grind other status, you have his first mage style for grinding agility, and his second limited style to grind intelligence. Now for passives, we have Fantasia. When attacked, 37% chance to evade the attack. This is something that you can find on Assails, for example. It's a very good chance and made for boss fights. It's gonna save him from time to time, and you're gonna thank God that you have this. Then the second passive is Reinvigorate 1 Dexterity. This is actually one of the best passives for long fights. When attacking, he gets a 15% dexterity buff and recovers 1 BP. This means that this guy gets access to 4 BP by a turn after he attacks, and will allow him to use very good cycles. Then the last passive is Fired Up 6, that increases damage by 30%. For our skills, we have Heat Waves. This was changed from JP. Now it's just 0 BP and 1 LP, and gets him an evasion stance that lasts for 1 turn. There are reasons why we want to use this, and I'll explain in a few. But when you use this, you are not attacking, you are not getting BP back, and you are not getting your dexterity buff. So maybe sometimes you just prefer to rely on maybe triggering Fantasia and buffing dexterity and getting BP back to use your attacks. But this also makes him an off tank. You can use him in formations like Desert Lance X, Rising Phoenix X, and Tiger Shark. And if the enemy only attacks with single target attacks, or is more focused on that, he can draw attacks to himself because of the formation. He doesn't have taunt, and this can be used 5 times in a row. After he stops using, he will have access to a lot of BP to do damage and help the squad, while this squad was already doing their own things. Finally, after 5 turns of helping them not taking damage, he will just start doing damage himself with very powerful attacks. So it has usage, it just depends on the situations. And in JP was 3 BP, was not so good, now it's just 0. Now the second attack, Blaze Rush. For 6 BP, we have an attack that can hit between 2 to 4 hits, and it's pierce and heat. And this attack here is power creep, guys, because we can check a character like Minerva, for example, and Minerva has multi-trust. Not just her, many characters have access to this attack, and it's 7 BP with only pierce. Now he says, screw, I can do it with 6 BP and I can add heat. Now adding heat and being a happier user allows him to combo well with Matriarch, Piano of Peace. That is used alongside Leon in some setups. But what I can tell you is that you can bring Barthelemy instead of Leon in some fights, because Leon covers blunt, slash, and cold, and Barthelemy covers pierce and heat, different elements. And if the enemy is weak to both, you can even bring both if you can, form a squad that works. And because he gets access to 4 BP, let's say in 3 turns you get access to 12, you will be able to use Blaze Rush in 2 turns of this 3. So a normal attack, 2 Blaze Rush, normal attack, 2 Blaze Rush. It's a very good cycle with a character that self-buffs. So damage just scales and gets bigger and bigger. When he hits 4 times, it's triple S damage right out of bat and even a strong output to keep doing. One extra thing, because Blaze Rush is now 6 VP, you can use this 3 times in a row. Yeah. But now we can also compare this attack to Elicid. Elicid got a buff in Global as well, and they are very similar. He's a physical type, Elicid is a magical type, covers different elements. But Gale Thunder is just the same. With 6 BP, you can hit between 2 to 4 times, and can be used as well 3 times in a row. In her case, she started with plus 2 BP, in his case, he gets 1 BP by attacking. So, very similar. And Elicid will do more damage on turn 1 because she gets up to 60% increase in damage, while Barthelemy is gonna do better on long fights because he actually self-buffs. Right now, when we have forged weapons, we prefer characters that self-buff themselves than just more damage passives. This is gonna pay more when you are just fighting against a boss. So yeah, this buff changes him and makes him a much better damage specialist. You can use Blaze Rush on turn 1, 2, and 3, turn 4 use normal attack, then turn 5 use Blaze Rush again, and turn 6 you have Blaze Rush yet again. In 6th turn he uses attack 5 times. And buffing himself in the middle, this is amazing. Or you can just opt to open the fight with a 1 normal attack and then 5 Blaze Rushes in a row. That's very good. That is in boss fights. If you are farming or on raids, you just want to use Blaze Rush as early as possible. Then the last attack is Stinger. For 8 PP you get double S power with 47 mod with a medium chance to instant kill. Because his intelligence was buffed, he now has a very high chance to instant kill even enemies with resistance. I can tell you that even those with 100 will be one shot. You can compare this to what they did to Bertrand. Bertrand buffs his intelligence, his Twilight Fall is low chance, but because you buff intelligence, they are pretty much similar on this regard. There is another character that can instant kill, but then one is Darked, and Darked does not have so much intelligence. Look, it's only 75%. He gets access to Stinger as well, but the good thing about Darked is that he can use it twice in a row. But sadly, Stinger and instant kill strategies were more used against Conquest, and they just don't allow us to have a stage with just one enemy that can be instant killed anymore. Also, he cannot use it twice in a row, so the usage of the instant kill part is pretty limited. It's more for those that don't want to use Blaze Rush, so you leave that on 8, and then he just cycle Stinger, normal attack, Stinger, normal attack. It's actually pretty strong as well, but I still prefer Blaze Rush right now since it even has heat damage, something that makes him pretty unique. Well, we can talk about inheritance, but I don't think that's super important for him. With his aim style, he can get Sword Ballet Plus, but he does not use this twice in a row. It's not as good as other options in the game. But he can inherit something like Flame Magic from this version of him, because it's 6 BP, remember? You can use this 5 times a 6 turn cycle. So this debuffs STR, can use it pretty fine, and also does pierce damage. But when you use Flame Magic, you're gonna need an intelligence buff, because this one is based on intelligence instead of dexterity. But if you don't have any other character that can do it, he's gonna be good. Then you also have this other version of Barthelemy with Flame Hammer. This one debuffs intelligence instead, and you can use the same 5 times in a 6 turn cycle. If you don't have any other people that can debuff intelligence, this one can help you. Still, I really like the way they designed Barthelemy. He's more of a boss specialist or single target damage dealer, but then Fantasia gives him an edge in boss fights. He can use Blaze Rush many times in a row, can be used as an off-tanker that can evade and not take any hit for even 5 turns if he wants. Then you can just inherit debuffs for many usage with good power. Barthelemy is a character that I can tell you won't fit in every fight, but, well, his past version works with Paean of Victory in Matriarch. This version works with Paean of Peace and Matriarch. You just choose between the two versions depending on the content. They are pretty good, will still be. And now you can train one character to have access to many tools. That's how you just reduce the size of your roster, by investing in a character that has many usages. So he's gonna receive a high double S grade in the tier list because he operates well, just a little more restricted. It's not a character that brings AoE single target to the table. He's just focused, but sometimes having a focused character is better than one that wants to be a Swiss knife. Now let's talk about Melissa, your happy future, the last character from the banner, and she is what you see here. There's no future style, there's no S style to inherit from. Well, there is 78% endurance and 82% will, so you see that she takes similar damage to both types. Then we have 75 agility. Having low agility is not that bad for a healer because actually sometimes you want to heal after the enemy attack, and if you want to heal before, you can use overdrive. Not that it's available all the time, but you can do it. Then she has 90% intelligence, as you see. This is not high. We're getting characters with 116% and beyond. Now 90% won't do much damage, but that is because she wanted to get higher love and charisma. She has very high values for that. So that's what she actually wants. Then for passives, we have Revitalize 3. On the end of a turn, she has a 25% chance to heal. Should be around 900 because of such a high love and charisma. And plus 3 BP. 25% chance is not reliable, but at least when it triggers, you don't have to heal the healer. And it's on the end of a turn and not on the start. It's better because... And by being on the end of a turn, it's even better because... you see if she really needs a heal on the next turn or not. Many times I try to heal my healer that heals on the start of a turn and then it just healed and it was useless. Now the third passive, Ailment Ward, has a 37% chance to, on the end of a turn, cleanse all status elements and remove all debuffs to status. Well, being on the end of turn is actually better than being on start, because if your characters are fast enough and they attack before the boss, they will get inflicted with status elements after they attack it. And you don't have to care about losing their turn on the next turn, because they cannot act if they are affected by status elements. So the problem here is the chance, 37%. So you have to rely on RNG. And there are moments where Melissa may feel like a good option to have in your team. Like there is Abyss Naga fight in World Tower 240 that debuffs your love and charisma to stop you from healing. Melissa will just remove that debuff and allow you to heal a little here and there. And if you have a character like Mirza, you can just try to use him as soon as you cleanse and then heal your party. Well, it's not gonna be so useful if you have other characters that use LP, because depending on the situation, that is not enough. Cleansing and then just getting the buffet again right after won't help you too much. But she is gonna be very well aligned with Mirza, Gerard, or Leon, and situations where they will debuff your love and charisma. But there are older fights where you want characters that are more reliable. Let's say the Abyssal Lord fights. They have a lot of chance to inflict status elements right from the start. But then if you bring someone like Matriarch that has speed enough peace, she just buffs love and charisma and will. And then another character like Halloween Princess White Rose that has Princess Pumpkin Party and can also just cleanse. Well, it's gonna be usually better than Melissa. But if the chance is just too high, Melissa can help on the start. But then after that, she's not so useful anymore, unless you want to cleanse your debuffs. Sometimes it's needed. Right now we have the Abyss Lords that can debuff you every turn. They can debuff your STR, so your damage will lack if you use STR based units. Or there is even a fight against, say, Bune, where she can counter direct attacks but debuffs your dexterity, and you want to use gunners. Bringing Melissa will cleanse those debuffs to give you higher power, but sometimes you can also just fix that debuffs by buffing yourself further. So it's just a different character that can be used, not exactly the best one in all occasions. So you have to understand this. Now let's talk about the second passive, Singe's Teaching. When recovery actions are made, she recovers her HP, should be around 1.2 thousand, and then increases all of her status by 15%. This helps her survive a little better, and you will be healing with her, and that's what she does after she uses other skills. And there's only one heal spell. Revitalizing Water Plus. This will also allow other characters to amplify. With 4 BP and 1 LP, you can recover, and the recover was improved. She will also buff endurance for this person by up to 25% and gives 1 BP as well. So nice, not that bad, but it does not cleanse. I wish this could cleanse as well, because if it was just like an emergency situation where you really need to stop someone from, well, using charm to kill your party, this would not help you. You still have to rely on RNG to cleanse. Now for the second spell, Marine Ball, we have an AoE code attack that grants morale down when it hits. For 3 turns, you will decrease the damage from your enemy by 15%. Well, this is something similar to what we got recently, and will become something that you find in many characters. That, let's compare this to Eagle Maul has this attack called Malicious Trick. This will get the enemy into an attack down stance, and this one has the same value, decreasing it by 15%, so the overall damage of the enemy is reduced. So this actually is similar to giving you guard up, but you are just decreasing the damage on the source instead of just increasing your resistance. Because it lasts for 3 turns and has only 5 EP codes, is actually very useful, and I can tell you how you use this. Melissa actually works super fine in the tortoise formation because she has very high glove, very high charm, and then you can just use Marine Ball to get a little more resistance against damage, because you could just use Tigers then, right? Another formation with a higher decrease in damage. But then you want to recover, you want to use a different strategy where you heal. So having sources that can decrease the damage will help. Marine Ball will decrease the damage on the source, so you can heal more and survive for long fights. So it's not a bad thing, it's just not made for damage, it's just made so that you can hit all targets and make them do less damage. Then we have the last spell called Dragon's Blessing. For 9 BP, we have a support fast spell. Being fast helps, that puts all surviving allies into a defense boost stance that has a decrease in damage by 15%. And besides that, she recovers all surviving allies by very small, should be 180 or more, and all surviving allies BP by 1 too. So we have 3 effects in a support spell. First of all, it's good because you can open the fight using this if you want, decreasing damage right on start, and will give 1 BP. The bad thing is that the heal is wasted, so sometimes you may prefer to go with Marine Ball and then decrease the damage from the enemy, and then use Dragon Blasting on the second turn. But then it only happens if you manage to trigger Revitalize 3, because 9 plus 5 means 14, right? Or you will have to use Dragon Blasting on turn 1 because you get 1 BP back, and then use Marine Ball on turn 2. You have to rely on Revitalize to trigger to keep cycling between Dragon's Blessing and Marine Ball, or you won't have them all activated forever. You just have a turn where Marine Ball is not activated and a turn where Dragon's Blessing is not activated because, well, she cannot keep casting them like crazy. So I guess you can see her design here. She was made to cycle between Marine Ball and Dragon's Blessing with help of Revitalize and try to decrease the damage by the source, increase your resistance to damage on the same time to decrease the final damage and survive better, especially using the tortoise formation. Well, there is one character that offers a similar setup of her skill number 3, and that is Monica. She deals that with lower cost, but she sacrifices 1 LP. But Monica is much more offensive. With Pleasure of Pleasure, she gives morale up instead of defense enhancement to increase your damage output over the next turn, and also increase your heal over turn with that charisma. So they are different characters. Monica can do damage as well when she's not doing support skills. Melissa is fully support and her damage is just forgotten. But there are situations where she can help you. I believe that she's not a must-have because everything that she does can be fixed by other characters or by retrying the fight. So if you like the way that she's designed and want to play around with this type of support, she's gonna serve you well, just won't be a character for everyone. With all that said, is this banner worth summoning for? Well, in my opinion, not as much. Even with all buffs, it still has medium value and will receive a silver award. The silver award is also only here because of the buffs that they receive it. Without buffs, this will be a very easy to skip banner. They did receive something that helps, like Melissa now does not have guard up, she actually has defense enhancement. Barthelemy now has a much better cycle. Well, Arsenal was already good, and he can also just buff break easily. When Melissa works, she works well. The bad thing is that we also have Haniwa here, a character that will not really use much. But the other three can be used just fine. The problem is that what they do can be found in a way or replace it by different characters, and if you already have them, you may not need these characters. You can just keep them with much easier. We have Leon banner still active. If you don't have Leon, go get him. There is also Matriarch banner. Some people may still be after gens to try to pity her. There is also the Matriarch version 3 rerun, and she still offers more in the long run than any of these characters may have. Low value banner when compared to what we have, although the characters are not exactly bad. And also they will announce other banner in 1 week from now, maybe related to Game Boy Saga. They will buff, so I suggest you wait, even if you like these characters, to check if the future banner will give you more, or even keep summoning on the current ones. For new players, this banner does not offer as much as well. Much better to keep summoning on those I mentioned or wait for newer ones. And for what it's worth, I'm a fan of Barthelemy. I like robots, so I would just want Arsenal as well, but even I will just wait to see what's to come in the future. But that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description, and I hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye.